Hey folks, Fernando doing our video for Modern Survivalists, and one of the things people are realizing these days is that many preppers were not really all that prepared. They thought they were, but when it came down to it, not so much. Now, this is something that was at some point predictable. We all know that there's a lot of fantasy and a lot of role-playing, make-believe in the preparedness community, not always as realistic as it should be. But when moments like these happen, when things like these happen, then it becomes painfully obvious. Now, some of this I have addressed in the past, in a previous video where I talked about some of the more common mistakes made. And specifically in terms of some supplies like gas masks, respirators, that sort of thing, a lot of people just had none of that. Now, a gas mask for me is like basic supply you should have. So as to ensure that you have safe, breathable air. Air being one of the top priorities for survival. It's part of the rule of 3. You cannot survive 3 minutes without air. That means that to a great degree it's something that you should be addressing out of simple methodical preparedness. A way of ensuring breathable air, sure, a gas mask. That's kind of obvious, at least to me, but clearly enough for a lot of people it wasn't, and that was one of the typical things I've seen these last few days, people missing. Now, some folks had something, maybe a few respirators from the workshop, or they managed to improvise, and it's fantastic that you can improvise lots of these things, and you can make some homemade respirators, and masks are quite good. But it really doesn't do the job in the same way. An actual gas mask that covers completely your, a full face mask would be ideal. But that would be one of the, it's also surprising. Sometimes I've read of people that didn't have enough food in their house. Folks that had a couple weeks worth of food or even less than that, and they consider themselves preppers. Some guys that had no ammunition, they had a gun, but they had to run to the stores and buy some ammunition at the last minute. Now, no one is perfect. We all make mistakes. We all have our things to improve. One of the things I love about survival and preparedness is that's a lifelong pursuit. You never stop learning. You never stop seeing areas in which you can improve. That's pretty cool. I love the idea of always staying curious and learning new skills and seeing where I can do a little bit more. I don't know. It does it for me. But some basic aspects, some basic areas should be covered out of simple methodical preparedness. You need breathable air, you need food, you need means of self-defense. So it's kind of interesting to see so many people that consider themselves preppers, consider themselves well prepared, and I don't know, failed, but just didn't cover that nearly as well as they should. Now, number 2 would be one of the things that, again, was always quite obvious: physical preparedness. How poorly set people are in a physical aspect, in terms of being a reasonable weight, staying somewhat healthy. Not talking about being an elite athlete, but man, come on, you have to be capable of doing a certain labor, defending yourself, being healthy in terms of not dying. That's kind of essential so as to survive, right? And yet a lot of people in pretty bad shape. And again, no one is perfect. I certainly am far from that myself, especially in terms of fitness. But a minimum level, you kind of have to address that. Get yourself checked with a doctor. See if you are in good shape. Have your blood tested if your cholesterol is going through the roof. If you have a blood pressure that's just going through the roof, you are definitely not in a good position, especially for something like this, for COVID-19. If you are overweight, if you have high blood pressure, if you have lots of medical conditions that you could have done something in the past so as to improve them considerably, let's put it that way. Definitely. Staying in shape in terms of cardiovascular exercise a couple times a week. These are all things that not only improve your situation for this specific moment for the virus, which if you are in good shape, if you are exercising, that boosts your immune system, makes it a lot better so as to defend your body, defending itself from the virus. Just across the board in terms of preparedness. It just puts you in a better position in a number of areas. Finally, in terms of mentally speaking, would be another one where you see people cracking under the pressure. And that's especially in terms of quarantine, or quarantine, well, whatever, it doesn't matter. You guys know what I mean. There's folks that just were not ready for it, family-wise. They just don't get along. There's people that are, arguing, fighting, divorces going up as well. Depression, talking about something that preppers are particularly well known for. The doom and gloom, dark, negative way of viewing things. If you look at life from a negative, if you cannot avoid being negative about life in general, when something like this hits, it just cracks you, it just breaks you. You don't rise to the occasion, you just you default to your lowest level of training, is it? Well, you're not going to be rising to the occasion and getting rid of your depression or your negativity when something like this happens. It's kind of the other way around. You just see everything worse, because everything is actually a little bit worse when something like this happens, and there's not a lot of stuff to be all that cheerful about. So you have to work very hard at staying positive. The mental aspect would be one of the things that definitely a lot of people just have a hard time coping with it, and this is still going on. This is not nearly over. It's going to be a longer process than most people think, and I don't think if everyone is all that ready. One of the other things that you have to think about is what's coming after this, and already affecting a lot of people. The amount of people that lost their jobs over this is huge. You're looking at a Great Depression, and not everyone is ready for that. There's going to be folks losing their jobs. There's going to be folks that lose their homesteads because they live in a certain place, and all of a sudden whatever job they had is no longer there, and they have to leave that place, move somewhere else, to find a job, keep earning a living. All of these things will not be easy. And this is interesting because it's something I was talking with Daniel, the guy from Venezuela, again from a previous video too, and he was mentioning that one of the things that happened to him was that when many of his friends were leaving Venezuela, he just couldn't make that move because he was too attached to his life, the effort he had made, the house he had purchased with a lot of hard work, and seeing how when his friends would leave Venezuela and the government would take their property over and they would be losing their houses literally to that, he just couldn't quite make that move, and he kept on waiting until things got better, never did, and he kind of got stuck there, which is one of his greatest regrets. A lot of preppers are just way too attached to their physical belongings, to their physical preparedness, and not using all that much the mental aspect of it in terms of this is all just stuff. Stuff is replaceable. Stuff that you bought, you can buy it again eventually. You cannot replace your life. You cannot replace your loved ones. Those are the key things. And maybe if you don't end up losing directly, the life of a loved one or your own, maybe you end up losing the life that you have in terms of family and relationships. You end up getting divorces because you just couldn't make the change that was needed. The key to survival is the one who adapts best at changes. If you are capable of adapting, that is a key factor to survival in nature. How quickly and effectively you adapt to the new situations. If you are stuck on, yes, it has to be this way because, man, I bought this place, I put so much effort in this, and I just don't see myself leaving it, I'll make my last stand here. Okay, you may well do that, but it's not all that wise from a survival perspective, If you have to move to another state, to another county, to something else, I mean, man, even in another country like I did, or like Daniel, the guy from Venezuela, wish he had done himself. These are all tough choices. Once you do it once, super easy to do it again. You just don't worry all that much. And you understand this, what I'm explaining. Material stuff, you can buy it again. I've gone through that already more than once. and it's not that big a deal. Once you have the right mindset, right, once you have the right attitude, you realize that just all of this is just stuff you can buy it again, and you can maybe even buy it better or newer, you know. Family, loved ones, no, that's not coming back. And if the mistake you made because you just couldn't let it go ends up costing you one of those, man, you're going to be regretting that for the rest of your life. So economically speaking, that's a topic for another video. You're looking at a pretty complicated scenario. Of course, for those of you guys that have been in my channel for a long time, you know about this, that my first book was specifically about economic collapse. The Modern Survival Manual, Surviving the Economic Collapse. It's a book kind of specially dedicated to this topic, right? Of course, I do recommend it, like my last book as well, which is, you know, the material that I think helps folks prepare for some of the things that are going to be happening, you know, are already happening right now, going to be happening in the future. And man, this is the moment in which a lot of the bullshit just does not fly anymore. A lot of the things that were sold to us, yes, this is about preparedness, this is what preppers do. Oh yeah, that's a lot of fun. It's not always all that effective. There's nothing wrong with learning lots of valuable skills in terms of wilderness survival and all that stuff. That's all great. But it's not always applicable to some of the things that happen to us when, you know, bad things like the ones that are happening right now you know, hit us. We just need to make some adjustments that a lot of people clearly haven't been thinking about all that much. Folks, hope you're doing well with the middle of this quarantine, lockdown, wherever you are. Take care. See you on our next video. Have a good day.